Good morning and welcome to Breakfast at the BAST. This is Sylvia Karman Cubiñá, the Executive Director of the BAST in Miami Beach. And today we're in conversation with Sylvie Fleury, all the way from Switzerland. Normally I like to ask my guests what they're having for breakfast, but I think Sylvie is more sort of in cocktail times. Hi Sylvie, how are you?
Hi Silvia, I'm very well, thank you. Nice to see you here.
It's really wonderful to see you, and thank you for joining me this morning. Sylvie and I have this tradition that we never thought we would do via tech in long distance, but we've been meeting for Cappuccinos. Sylvie, do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Oh yeah, actually, I was thinking about it because when I think of you, I think about cappuccinos as well. But recently, it's been difficult to do researches about good places to get them. So I researched the machine to make them. So I now have a fantastic sort of milk foamer, and you're very welcome to come and taste one cappuccino to my house next time you're in Europe.
And I will as soon as I can. I think right now I'm probably going to ask you to send me your research so I can buy the cappuccino machine. And then
can we do advertisement?
Yeah.
There's a machine called DeLonghi which makes the hot milk, and it's the best. It's just amazing.
Excellent. So,
I hope they send me one or two for free now I've said that.
I think you should. You deserve one, definitely. So this series, really, I like to interview artists, and really more than an interview, it's a conversation about art, about life, and really about our current reality, because there's so much thinking going on about life in semi-isolation, or at least life in this new reality, which is much more quiet and much more still. And I love to ask artists, and I will ask you, Sylvie, tell me about your times in isolation and tell me about your thoughts.
Well, I can say a couple of things about that. I had the feeling, because I, of course, like most of us in the art world, travel a lot all the time for my work and so on. But then usually when I'm finished with my work and or my traveling, I come back home and I do nothing, and I see very few people to kind of recharge my battery. So for me, this lockdown was pretty much like being in between trips, except that the in between ended up lasting much longer. And it's been not that different. I mean, I tell you, I'm wild. I don't go out so much around Geneva when I'm around. So I just stay home a lot. So for me, it's kind of almost normal.
So, have you taken up any new hobbies during this time that you wouldn't have otherwise, or maybe read a book or produced a work of art that you think comes out of this moment, or of thoughts happening in this moment?
Yeah, I definitely read a lot of books because accidentally I repainted my library just before this lockdown. And so all my books were in 2 boxes and I had to put them back on their shelves. And I always thought, I'm going to do that really quickly. But this time I really took the time, and each book I looked and I read a little bit, and I could really, and I felt that was luxury. It was a wonderful moment to kind of really go through my books, go back through whatever they were bringing me to. And that was really lovely. And then in terms of maybe more physical exercise, because we were not going out so much and so on, I have a tiny garden in front of my house. So I started playing badminton, because it's small enough and you could do. So I really, really enjoyed that. And that was basically my workout, was playing badminton. The weather has been amazing. Yeah.
I think that exercise has been something that has been very present these days. Yesterday, in fact, I heard somebody say that walking had really been part of everybody's lives now, is just walking. And when I think of walking, I think of slow exercise and thinking, because when you walk, you think. I think more than running, although I wouldn't know about running because I don't run. But walking is a great way to have conversations and to think. And badminton is certainly original.
Well, I always walked a lot. I love walking. So in the beginning of the lockdown, I was walking a lot. But then little by little, they started closing all the good spots because they didn't want too many people to meet. So I actually walk less than I used to. But in terms of exercises and getting back to my library, I found a wonderful book that I completely forgot I had that's called Cat Flexing, and it's exercises you can do with your cat, and you can sort of lift the cat and do all sort of push up with the cat sitting on your back and so on. So that was pretty nice rediscovery of that book.
Sounds like your reorganizing your library was very good, even for doing exercises with your cat. So I want to jump right into talking about Eternity Now. I got a very nice email yesterday from someone saying, I'm really looking forward to talking to hearing the Eternity Now artist speak. You're the Eternity Now artist, and what has now become quite iconic in Miami Beach and quite iconic everywhere, because I think a lot of people come to Miami Beach and see Eternity Now on our facade at the Bass Museum. And let's talk about a little bit how that happened. And I'll begin and I'll sort of tee up the conversation by saying that I invited you to do a show at the Bass and sent you the dimensions of the gallery. And then you responded, no, that I want to do something else. And then I said, no, but we have this great little gallery that's ready for you. So please tell me, what do you want to do with the gallery? And I think after 3 times that I kept pushing the gallery and you kept saying, no, I want to do something else, I said, okay, I think she has a good idea. Let's follow her. And what happened was that, as usual, when you break from your very literally in the box gallery ideas and you allow the artist to take you somewhere else, you end up in a better place. At least that's how we see it at the Bass. Do you want to talk about your experience, and how Eternity Now came about?
Oh, with pleasure, because for me it was a really, really good experience as well. And I'm glad to hear all these good things about it. But what happened really, if you recall, is that you asked me to do a performance during the Miami Basel, and I was not sure. I hadn't figured out what I was going to do. I took a flight to Miami, and on my flight, I was flipping through the duty-free magazine, and I saw with interest that Calvin Klein had come up with a new perfume called Eternity Now. Of course, this was brought to my attention because I used Eternity in the 90s for wall paintings. There was a series of work that I was very much into, was to do these large wall paintings from perfumes names that I would just paint directly on the wall. So I thought it was funny that they had kind of customized one of my work in a way. And so I didn't think more of that. Then I came to the Bass. I think it was the same morning that I had arrived, and I saw the building in real, sitting outside of it because I think it was closed. It was under construction. And suddenly it just was so clear. There was not even a thinking about it. I saw this Eternity Now in neon on top of the museum, and I was convinced that it was what had to be there. And I can tell you it happens, but it doesn't happen so often that it's so clear and so strong. And I remember having to convince not only you, but my gallerists and people, and I was kind of saying, yeah, but you know what? We really have to do that. It's Eternity Now. It's not another time. It's now and on the Bass. And so I was so glad. So when in the end, when it happened, and then when you decided to keep it and all of this, it's just a really good story altogether. And we should thank probably Calvin Klein in the meantime as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's seen it, but hasn't really come knocking, So did you think about how Eternity Now, the words conceptually work with the context of Miami Beach or the museum or the park?
Everything worked. That's why it clicked. It was architecturally, the neon in Miami, the text, the fact that it's a museum, the fact that it's a ready-made text, which is what I love to use. And maybe that's what I should have said also, that it's really for me important to make this ready-made neon text, and I don't invent anything. As you see, I just flip through the duty-free magazine and then I look at the thing and it all happens by itself. I don't have much to do.
Well, I think I'll disagree with you not having much to do. And when you presented this idea, immediately what flashed through our minds was Eternity Now is so much about Miami Beach, this eternal youth, and how it's always about the now, how it's such a place that it reinvents history, because it's had many histories in the 20s and in the 30s, and then the Art Deco, and then in the 80s it had its moment, which was not as, I guess, it was a different moment. And then now it has this, it's always reinventing this eternal now, and that's why we thought it would be so iconic to have. And you can even go back to Juan Ponce de Leon in his quest for the Fountain of Youth in Florida. So it just has so many references that if you peel them apart, they're amazing. But I want to go back to something that you just said about your ready-mades, which is so interesting, because Sylvie Fleury is a conceptual artist, and normally I do a very formal introduction, but I thought this time I'd weave it through so it was more of a conversation. A conceptual artist that works with ready-mades. And I want to point to a ready-made, because you're talking about that now. Your invitation to participate in the 45th Venice Biennale, where you presented the performance that were models that were wearing reproductions of Yves Saint Laurent and Piet Mondrian's dress, which is such a ready-made, but also a performance. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think ever since my first artwork, which were the shopping bags, where I went shopping and I just dropped the bags with their contents on the floor of the gallery, I've been really exploring ready-mades, or how to make them in different ways and in different variations. For me, for instance, for the shopping bags, what interested me was that there was a content that was non-visible to the viewer, but nevertheless was here. So I think it's hard for me to say that I'm a conceptual artist. I mean, you can say that, but I don't know if I can say that, because I never find really a label that fits for me, but perhaps I think ready-made is almost, I'm more of a, ready-made explorer and that of course is conceptual, but then we could go on for a while, and I don't think that's what we want to do here. But
well, you're definitely an explorer. And what I'd like to ask you now is that you deal with the concept of luxury very much. So this love of luxury, but also a critique of luxury, and really balancing somewhere in the middle. Can you define luxury now?
Luxury now, if we're talking now, of course, luxury changes all the time. So it's different that, maybe nowadays luxury is going to be traveling, and when it wasn't 6 months ago. So it's hard to define, but the reason, luxury is also somehow capitalist kind of concept in my work, and that's what I try to do, and that's why I use it. I like to look at it through a kind of distorting lens and play with it. But it's not my love of luxury that brings me to do that, but it's more my puzzled mind towards it that makes me do these things.
Can we look at the next image, the one with the, well, actually, we'll look at that one. This is a version of Eternity Now that you did in Switzerland, correct? Out of ice?
Correct.
Which I thought was very interesting to see another version, this more like the perfume bottle. But let's look at the next image with the golden work. Yes, because you work with a lot of golden things that you make into gold, ordinary things. Do you want to talk about this series?
Yeah, I could talk more widely about texture maybe, or material, or no, material is too vast. Texture, gold plated works where I mean, have this thing for me. It's a little bit like I used to make bronzes also, and the bronze would be chrome plated. So it's a little bit like, you know, again, just like in the shopping bags, what's in it is not completely obvious when you look at it from the outside. So of course, there are many reasons that make gold interesting for me to work with in terms of meaning and shyness and all that stuff. So for the for the garbage cans, I just gold plated something that wasn't meant to be noble or anything like that. Just making a very easy comment on superficiality.
And you also gold plated a very famous work right now, which is the shopping cart.
Yeah, many years ago I did that, in the year 2000 actually. And that was the first gold plated. I also gold plated hairpins, which I like very much. I made this piece where I gold plated about 15 bobby pins and hairpins, and I would just throw them on the floor, and that was a free composition. There was, and I used gold also with using paint, car paint with metallic flakes and stuff like that. Yeah, gold comes back, but I also like silver and chrome and all sort of metallics. These are always interesting to me.
Wait, tell us a little more about that, about the bobby pins. You would just throw them on the floor for people to find?
No, I mean it's another exploration of the ready-made. In fact, using, I guess in those days I had longer hair and I was making kind of hairdos that needed hair rollers or bobby pins and stuff. And just like a lot of time in my work, it's just this kind of everyday object that suddenly I look at and I think, well, why bother and try and do something? These are great. We can just so I enlarged bobby pins. I made silk screen, the bobby pins for a while, and also, but it's all about this play that I have of looking at objects and trying to find a quality in them that maybe hasn't been brought before. Maybe no one really thought of it as being interesting, and somehow, I don't know, it's kind of a play. I mean, there's a lot of play in doing these sort of things.
I like that concept of play and work together. And how about dreams? Why don't we talk about dreams? Do you have a dream project that you would like to, or maybe something that if you didn't have a budget and there were no physics involved and no science and no limitations, is there anything you'd like to do?
Well, that's a difficult one, but it's a good question. um, no, no, nothing. Well, then I don't know what would be the point really to make things if all of this happens. But probably I would. You would just need to show me the space of the building, and it would come.
I can see that. I can see that. You know, I realize sometimes that art with limitations is when you place limitations on artists, sometimes you get really good work. So you say, okay, make a work of art and it has to be 2 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet, or you know, this is your budget, this is your space. You come up with really amazing things. And something that I think even more amazing than when you have these vast opportunities of, okay, what is your big dream? And
just
experience like your eternity now.
Yeah, well, there's something very instinctive about things, and starting from nothing is indeed more difficult. But it just reminded me of another gold-plated project I did, which were a pair of handcuffs. And but that was the first thing I did. I'm going back to the old the previous question, but we can go back to this one. I tend to go back and forth. Was I gold plated the garbage cans from the streets of New York, which were these big baskets that were all kind bashed up, which were on the street. And when I started being interested in that, I realized that they were made by the prisoners. That was a job that was, and I thought it was like really interesting that these garbage cans were being made by prisoners, and that's how I started doing the gold-plated garbage cans. But I think your question about if I could do anything is really a hard one for someone like me, who always jumps from reality to create something. Basically, I guess I have no imagination, because I always need to have some kind of thing that will trigger this, or all by myself, all alone with nothing around me. I'm not sure that I would be even making art, to be honest.
That's very interesting. So you find a lot of your inspiration by walking and outside, or interacting with people and things and places?
Always looking at stuff. But it could be anything. It could be an ad on TV, like it could be a beautiful painting from the 18th century. It could be whatever, you know. And I always find that almost everything can be really interesting. Well, and I have always, it's like a challenge for me to find, even with something totally not interesting, how could this become interesting? How could I remember when I was a kid, I would go and look at shop windows and look at things. And I would always, even if it was like the worst shop where everything was really ugly, I would always try and find what thing, once taken out of this context, could look good one way or another. And so I don't know, it's my gymnastic.
I like that. I like that. And, you know, I want to, can you please put up an image of Yes to All? Okay, I have to confess, this is my second favorite work of yours. Obviously, Eternity Now is my favorite. But this one is so positive. And I'd like to sort of, you know, get your impressions, how this started, how this applies to now. It's just such a great attitude in life. It really shows. Well, I'm not going to talk about the work. I'm going to let you talk about the work. Then I'll tell you what I think about the work and why I like it so much. But what you have to say is more important.
Okay, I will try to be not too long, because it's actually a rather long story, which started almost in LA, where I went once to purchase a system, a video system, computerized to visualize people's aura. And it was kind of a really weird thing where you had a sensor and you had a computer and you could put your hand on the sensor and suddenly your aura would appear. And I wanted to do works with that. So the only problem was with this beautiful project, Aura project, the computer that was only working with PC and I was using Macintosh and I didn't know very well how to use PC and I would always try to get this thing to work and I get lost in the programs. And suddenly when I was trying to change something, there would be this window appearing on the screen that says yes to all and then okay, cancel. And every time I had to choose okay to the yes to all, I was like, oh my God, maybe I'm going to destroy, like when you're not very good with a computer or some machine and you think, oh, if I say, and it's all gonna, so it made me super nervous for quite a while. And eventually just one day I thought, but this sentence, and then, this sentence stuck with me. I thought it's amazing because it's a sentence that's probably so many people see so many times a day. It's uncalculable. You cannot imagine how many times it has appeared. And yet, when you look at this sentence, it could be out of some Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist kind of doctrine, or it's a really, and then it has this still computer effect that when you start to think about yes to all and you for yourself in a more personal way and you think yes to all, and it's like a domino and you a domino game and you see things like clink 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 and you can and you don't know, and it's really puzzling. And I love this effect because it's very unsettling. It's not something that is reassuring, but it's something that could be beautiful, but you don't know, but it could be also awful and it could just turn out really bad. And then I thought, this is it. I really need to use this sentence. And I think this was the first, I'm not sure now, my memory is like, I remember I made T-shirts with yes to all. That wasn't such a good idea. Because people walking around. And it just didn't work. So I stopped making the T-shirt. And it was really bad. And then I also remember that this actual one that's on photo is in my hometown in Geneva. And this immediately got like the church to complain. And there was something. And I thought, well, if the church is not happy about it, it's probably a good thing too, because, it's like you don't want to just do something that everybody's going to be. You want to create a little stir, a little turmoil if you can. And without, of course, causing damage to the fact that the piece can stay. So yeah, and then for a while it stuck with me so much that I don't know how many my galleries had to tell me now stop using yes to all as a title, because I think the garbage can is called yes to all. I think
yes.
there are paintings that are called yes to all. There are other sculptures with tires that are called yes. And then it became really confusing, but it was kind of like, wow, okay, yes to all.
That's amazing. I find very funny your story about the T-shirts with the yes to all. And I can imagine what comments people were getting with the T-shirts. So, I had always focused on yes to all as a very positive, open-spirited, open-minded phrase. And, in fact, I have to confess, I have a few people that are sort of like that I travel with for art. And every time we're in the place and we're really tired and we're walking and there's still yet another exhibition, like when you go to Venice or something, and you see, okay, down there, 10 blocks maybe, if we don't get lost, there's this pavilion, which is great. And we look at each other and we say, yes to all. We're going to walk there. We're going to do that. So it's this great, great attitude and, all that positive side to yes to all. But now that you're talking about the scary aspect of yes to all, we were kind of living in a yes to all moment before we got shut down with this crisis. And it was a yes to all, yes, good, bad, and everything, to a point where all was everything all the time. And it's good to kind of think back on that and say, wow, maybe Yes to All does have the two aspects to it that are really on that edge, on that border, which makes the work even more interesting. So
no, you are absolutely right. Yes to all is actually no to all.
yes.
So
it's a wonderful quote, and I'm going to write it down so I don't forget. Because it's absolutely no to all. Isn't that interesting? So I think with that beautiful quote, we're going to stop for a minute and see if we have any questions from anybody watching or from anybody at all. Or Sylvie, do you have a question?
Tricky one.
No,
I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm getting some questions that I have here. Somebody's texting me a question. Okay. Okay, one question. I see a lot of beautiful plants behind Sylvie. Does she have a green thumb? Are plants an important part of her home environment?
Shall I answer?
Yes.
Well, I don't have a green thumb. My last name is Fleury, which in English means something like flowery. But I have a little garden in my house where I've been living for almost 30 years now, so it's a long time. And things tend to grow really well. It's a rainy country as well, and the sun, and so it grows pretty easy. So, but I don't have this kind of thing where I like to really grow things and dig in the earth and all that. Does that answer?
Yes, absolutely. I have a two-part question here. What's bringing you joy right now? And is there any brand slogan or product that you think encapsulate or is emblematic of the spirit of this moment?
Very good question. So you asked me if I thought if there is a product that has a name that works with
this time,
with this moment. Oh, give me a few things. Normally I see the word first and then I apply, but the other way around. Let's see if I can manage something. Hi. If I don't find, do I get canceled from my?
No. You owe us one, and then you can tell us, and then we'll put it on. We'll answer the people, or we'll put it on our website or something.
It might come before the end. Who knows? Sometimes it takes a little while to make his way in.
Well, let us know if you can think of something. So I have a question, whether you prefer to work inside or outside.
No difference.
Neither. And what language? How does Sylvie decide what language to work in for the ready-mades?
I love English. I don't know, it's not only because most of the people understand English, but I think it's a language that's very direct, very easy, very snappy, very efficient.
It is. And there's a lot of economy in English, like economy of words and letters and everything.
Yeah, you can invent things and build things and create little, yeah.
Okay, I think I'm getting one last question. I may be mistaken, but I think I am. So let's see.
Oh, I have the brand.
Oh, good.
It's a shoe brand, but I'm not sure if it still exists. But you know, I love shoes too. So, but these shoes aren't so high heeled. I think there's an American shoe brand called Easy Spirit.
Easy Spirit.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like shoes for comfortable shoes.
Right. Well, you asked me for the name. You didn't ask me for the product itself. But
No,
comfortable shoes are good for walking these days anyway.
that's all. The question was what brand name? So you answered it quite nicely.
Good.
Okay, well, I think if we don't have any questions, although I see a comment, your contradiction in all your work is fascinating. And I see one last question, and after that, we will say goodbye. And one last question. Hi, Sylvie, what is the process behind selecting text? Are there any phrases that really attract you?
I will select a phrase or a word if it's it has to have also a visual quality. It's not only also the meaning, but it has to have a visual quality. And if possible, because someone mentioned about my contradiction, if the meaning can be read in both ways, if it can be contradicting and it could be one thing or it's complete opposite.
That's a really good answer. Thank you. So I don't have any more questions for you, but I want to thank you so much, Sylvie, for spending some time this morning at our little coffee, our little breakfast at the Bass. And we look forward to continuing our conversation with you. Right now, we have the Eternity Now on our facade. So you're a part of Miami Beach, and this is always your home. Thank you very much. And thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Us.
Well, thanks to you. I'm so glad that the Eternity Now found its way in Miami Beach on the Bass. I every time I see it on any post on Instagram, makes me happy.
Wonderful. Okay, goodbye, and goodbye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Goodbye.